Hi. It seems like everyone wants to be retired, but no one wants to be old. But the concepts are unavoidably paired together. For example, take this test. This ad is in an AARP publication. Can you read the fine print without magnification? I can't. Retirement is literally a time when you pull back from the work world. It can be the best time of your life, but it also necessarily includes the aging process. And in reality, when you retire, you're talking about the time from now until sundown. And that reality informs the suggestions I will make today. Aging is the umbrella that hangs over retirement and was the original reason for retirement, although we've extended our senior years into decades in the modern world. Pop singer Madonna and I are the same age. I've always made fun of this video of hers in which she stretches while the young dancers make all the dangerous moves. But that's the reality of aging. And this video was made 18 years ago. But you're not going to be jumping down a flight of stairs in retirement as you might have when you were 20. But despite the reality of mortality and the limitations of age, retired people report the highest levels of happiness of any age group. And here are some tips to help make this happen. First, enjoy the liberation of acceptance. Built into our generation is an expectation and an obligation that we make the world a better place. Remember this pop song? We believed we could change the world. I turn down the heat when I leave my house to save money. But when I stay in a hotel, I turn it down not because it saves money, but because it's the world's energy, not mine. But with a limited number of years ahead, I've come to the realization that so many things I would like to change won't change. Gun violence, drug addiction, and wars will not end in my lifetime. That's depressing, but it's also liberating. I often say to myself, it's not going to change in my lifetime. And somehow this relieves me of responsibility and allows me to move on more easily. Try it out sometime. Say, it's not going to change in my lifetime. Now, the liberation of acceptance could also be called the acceptance of defeat. But just like we're talking about retirement instead of talking about aging, I prefer to stick with the positive version. The world's not going to change in your lifetime, so you might as well get out there and enjoy the world that is instead of pining for the world as you want it to be. In one of my early jobs in a fast food restaurant, they had a time clock where you would insert a card which would imprint the time with a loud and satisfying whack. I kind of liked it. There was no fudging time, and it was the kind of mechanical appliance that appealed to a boy like me. My next tip comes from that time clock, and it's to punch out. You're retired. You're not defined by your job. Time is no longer the most essential commodity in your life. That's health. Enjoy the opportunity for a new pace and approach. So, punch out. Take off your watch. When I worked a regular job, time was everything billed in 6-minute units. There's an old saying, live by the sword, die by the sword, and I modified it for myself by saying, live by the clock, die by the clock. I was never out of sight of a clock or a watch, and I lived my days with a constant awareness of time. When I quit working, I took off my watch. I no longer needed to measure my day in minutes. It could be measured in more gentle units like sunrise, morning, afternoon, and sunset. It took a little adjustment, but taking off my watch was a liberating part of punching out and moving into the retirement lifestyle. Next, recalibrate time. You don't have to be at the office before 8. You can take the time to talk to the interesting person you meet at the coffee shop. And in fact, you don't really need to be anywhere at any certain time today. And my recommendation is that you slow down. I lived my life driving 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, both literally and figuratively. When I retired, I slowed to the speed limit and it felt great. You can now take time to stop at stop signs, look both ways, and smile and wave the kid on the bike by. You can wave the hurried driver through the four-way stop first, and you can let the car out of the shopping center into traffic ahead of you. Slowing down creates a peace and a joy of its own. You're retired. You're no longer in a hurry. Next, when you retire, don't be surprised that your tasks expand to fit your schedule. When I worked, I used to be up, prepared, and out of the house in less than an hour. It now takes me 2.5 hours to get out of the house, but I take time to think, meditate, look out the windows at the wonderful views, appreciate nature and the humanity passing by. The hours I spend before dawn and as the sun rises are the most pleasurable part of the day for me, and I do some of my best thinking then. I'm amazed that some people claim boredom is a risk in retirement. I keep a to-do list and I never get further than halfway through it. There are so many interesting activities and subjects to research that I wonder where people get the time to both work and live. You can find enormous pleasure in pursuing your natural curiosity without the need to make a living doing it. That's probably the best aspect of my retirement. Finally, realize you're not as important as you thought you were. Sure, work is going to call you for a while, but in a few years, you'll be forgotten. You're leaving the workforce at the peak of your knowledge and power, but in retirement, you have to adjust to not being Mr. X, Dr. X, Expert X, but to just being Bob or Mr. Smith if you're lucky to be dealing with a person who respects their elders. It takes some time to adjust to this, but it ties in with the liberation of acceptance. You're no longer responsible for your former workplace. You're free to proceed with your life in the direction you desire without regard to what you used to do, unless that's what you really enjoy doing. Next tip, embrace the retirement lifestyle. Some people make fun of retirees for going to a matinee, hitting dinner at 4:30 p.m. for 2 specials and 2 waters, and then pulling into the garage before the sun sets. But having done this myself, I think it's great. Why battle crowds when businesses discount their rates and welcome you in the slower hours? Why not skip the expensive jug wine at dinner, have a water, then go home, sit on the porch and watch the sunset with a glass of wine you would never pay for in a restaurant? Why not go to bed at 9:30 if you're tired and then do grocery shopping the next morning at 6 a.m. when the store is empty? Why drive during rush hour when you can complete your errands when everyone else is at work or school? The retirement lifestyle has many advantages, and don't be embarrassed to use them. And by the way, does that come with a senior discount? The next tip is a little more serious. That is, monitor and balance your indulgences. Now, Neil Young sang, "It's better to burn out than fade away," which sounded fun, but as a retiree, I have a different perspective. I'd prefer to fade away slowly. I spent my working life never having a drink before 5 p.m. I mean, maybe on a vacation I'd have a drink at lunch, and it would be a fun indulgence. But when you're retired, you're always on vacation. You can have a drink at lunch any day. There is no where you have to be, no task you have to perform. But that makes it easy to let your indulgences take a bigger role in your life. And when I say indulgences, it could be anything: gambling, marijuana, pursuing your hobby to distraction, or constantly finding someone new to date. You should live your life the way you want to, but do monitor the degree to which you indulge yourself. Now, this one's a little heavy too. Since you only have from now until sunset, follow this bit of wisdom. This above all, to thine own self be true. I guess the most extreme example of this I can think of is the transition of Bruce Jenner into Caitlyn Jenner. And that's none of my business, but if you've always wanted to be or date men, women, both, neither, now's the time to do it. If you've stayed in an unsatisfactory relationship for the children or for work or your parents, now's the time to make a change. You have from now till sunset to live the life you want to live. Take some time to evaluate your relationships and modify or eliminate the ones that are unsuccessful. I mean, you don't have to keep going to lunch with the narcissist from work who drives you batty. Just say, no, I don't want to do it anymore now that I'm retired. Whether in large or small ways, take the opportunity to be your true self. This above all, to thine own self, be true. The next tip is a small one, but maybe a bit of a fun one, and it is talk, but not too much. I often have to smile when I start talking to a younger person and see the fear in their eyes that I'll embark on a long story that they're going to have to listen to out of respect for my age. And really, this happens more often than you'd expect. My recommendation is reduce your message to an elevator speech. If the younger person wants to learn more, they'll ask questions. If not, they'll move on. So talk, but not too much. Now, when I was younger, I heard about the issue of invisibility among elders, but I was surprised the first time it happened to me. I was hiking rim to rim at Grand Canyon and I stopped for water at Manzanita when some young trail runners popped in. And it was as if I didn't even exist. They didn't acknowledge me, they didn't talk to me, they only chatted among themselves. They looked right through me. That was the first time it happened to me, but not the last. I was taught to give the utmost respect and courtesy to my elders, but don't be surprised when you encounter younger people who do not. And what does it matter? They don't have much to offer you either. But drawing from that, work with your new in-group, the seniors. Especially when I hike, I find the group that can give me the most accurate information about the conditions down the trail and understand why I'm asking are people like me, seniors. There's a certain degree of recognition and shared values among your in-group, and I recommend that you see them as a comfortable resource. Moving on, there was a time in the 70s when a certain four-letter word that begins with the letter S was very popular. I've sworn I'll never curse unnecessarily in one of these videos, but you remember phrases like stuff happens, and the one I want to use here, which is get your stuff together. Yes, retirement is the time to get your stuff together. First, draft your advance directives and healthcare decision-making documents. You know, young people say when they make a will, if I die, I want my car going to my brother. Seniors make a will and say, when I die, I want my car going to my eldest granddaughter. You're going to die and you'll likely face a period of disability before your death. Choose someone now who can speak for you about financial and healthcare decisions if you can't make those decisions for yourself. And educate this person about what your choices are. Some people want all the healthcare known to man, and some people want no intervention at all. Neither is right or wrong, but be sure you choose someone who will follow your wishes and have the documents to make this happen. Secondly, see an attorney and have a will, trust, or other estate plan that will transfer your assets to whomever or whatever you think deserves them. Since we're addressing mortality head on, make plans for your final disposition. I don't think prepaying a plan is a sound financial decision unless your death is imminent, but do let your loved ones know how you want your final disposition to be handled. I've let it known that I want the cheapest cremation available, no ceremony, and I want my ashes spread in a special place in Grand Canyon. No prepayment necessary. And this is a little one, but realize obituaries cost money. I've had to write a few in my time, and I had to balance, for example, my father's thriftiness with his desire for respect in the community. If you've got extra time, write your own obituary. I don't want one, but if one must be published, I only want it to have my name and the words, dead, dead, dead. While you're at it, you might want to clear out and organize your living space with the realization that if you don't, your kids or relatives will have to do it for you. Give them a break and hey, who doesn't need some extra closet space anyway? Anyway, you get the idea. Get your stuff together. You're not going to live forever, so make your plans with this awareness. Now, two things go into almost everyone's retirement tips, and that's have enough money and prioritize your health. There's plenty of commentary about money, to which I'm only going to add one tip. You're not dead yet. Sure, I set up my retirement plan expecting 2 or 3% inflation, and the current rates of inflation concern me. But if things get tight, I can always earn a few extra bucks. I could go back to part-time jobs I liked when I was young, like being a lifeguard or working with young people. The point is, you're not frozen into a single retirement plan, and as long as you have your health, you have the flexibility to adapt to a changing environment. Now, regarding health, I do have a tip, and that's make it your number one priority. I set daily goals in writing, and every day I write down health in capital letters as my number one goal. Without health, you have nothing. You can't travel. You can't spend time with your family. You can't serve your community. Health is the most important thing in retirement. When I ask myself, should I shop or exercise? I exercise. When I ask myself, should I socialize or exercise? I exercise. When I ask myself if I should clean the house or trim the trees, I exercise. My tip is make health your number one priority and keep repeating it to yourself until you start treating it that way. Almost every set of tips includes intensifying your relationships with your family, friends, church, or community. It's a personal choice, but I say the opposite. I say chuck them or something similar to that. To a large degree, I've drawn away from social engagements. I'm just too darn busy, and maybe I never like people all that much anyway. I always draw an analogy to my best friend ever, an old dog. And I say, I'm like my old dog. All I want to do is be left alone and go for a walk. Of course, for me, the walk is hiking Grand Canyon, but the concept's the same. My tip is have the social engagements that you feel comfortable with, and don't let anybody else define that for you. Pulling back from social engagement is a natural part of the aging process, and if it happens to you the way it happened to me, don't sweat the small stuff. To thine own self be true. Okay, now I'm almost done, but my next tip is recognize that time flies. Think of an old car with a manual transmission that you put in neutral when coasting down a hill. It really goes fast. And when you're over the hill and picking up speed, time goes by more and more quickly. Usually, my guess of how long ago something has been is half. The reality is that it was twice as long as I think. Time flies. And drawing on this, if you want to make something happen, make plans and put those plans into effect now. There's no time like the present, and the future is uncertain. This is your life, your retirement, and your time to make things happen. Finally, in closing, this tip, celebrate life. Despite the challenges, older people, or retirees, report the highest level of happiness of any age group. Just get out there and live. And thank you for watching.